So, I really shouldn't have to say this, but I love The Wheel of Time. I mean, my whole channel so far is just about The Wheel of Time. But that doesn't mean that I think these books are flawless. And today, well, as always, you've probably seen the title of the video, so you know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the romances in The Wheel of Time. And I know my opinion on this is actually fairly common. A pretty significant portion of the Wheel of Time fandom, we acknowledge that the romances in Wheel of Time are not the strongest part of the story. So talking about the romances is, well, it's going to end up with me talking about things that I think were done poorly. Hence the qualifier of, I love these books, so please don't take this criticism as saying that I don't. And again, I have to give a spoiler warning. This video will contain spoilers through to the end of the series. So, you know, if you do not want to be spoiled, I suggest you leave now. One of these days I'm going to make a non-spoilery video, I hope, but today is not that day. So, anyway, I'm going to start off on a high note with one of the better romances. And it's one that starts, actually, it blossoms in the very first book, Lan and Nynaeve. To be perfectly honest, I think one of the reasons that this romance actually works is that we don't really focus on it during its growing phase. We are mostly in Rand's head in the first book, and oddly enough, he isn't all that focused on what Nynaeve and Lan are doing. So we get these hints at something happening in the background. In fact, actually, often first-time readers don't notice the romance at all and feel like it comes out of nowhere at the end of the books. But then, you know, on a reread, you see all the little hints and it's super sweet. Of course, even this romance feels a bit odd if I think about it too much. Like, as it happens in The Eye of the World, we have Lan and Nynaeve fall completely and deeply and irrevocably in love in, what, a month? Like, they've known each other for literally a month. And at the end of this month, Nynaeve basically proposes to him and he promises his undying love to her. And that feels a bit silly. And the fact that they remain so in love over the course of the books when they really don't get to spend all that much time together also is a bit unrealistic. But, well, to be frank, this is something that I only really noticed now. Like, it never occurred to me before. It occurred to me while I was making my notes for this video. And I don't think it will bother me on a reread because it's very easy to, you know, suspend your disbelief on this. Characters fall in love really quickly. And with these two, the way it's written, it just works. And that line that Lan pulls at the end of The Eye of the World, that whole, I will hate the man you choose because he is not me, but I will love him if he makes you smile. I mean, I'm a lesbian, but Lan can get it, if you know what I'm saying. Like, damn, son, that is some quality wordsmithing. Anyway, this romance lasts throughout the books, and it's great. It works. You root for them, you're happy for them when they get together, you're hopeful for their future. It is a high point in Wheel of Time romance, in my opinion. And pretty obvious qualifier, but again, all of this entire video, just my opinion. But okay, moving on. The next best romance, again, in my opinion, is the Perrin and Faile romance. Yeah, I'm not joking. It's a big step down. Now, this is a personal thing, but I do not enjoy the whole, they hate each other. Oh no, it's because they're actually in love. That sort of trope, that romance trope, I don't find it realistic, and in fact, I find it annoying. And this particular trope happens a few times in these books, but I think it works best with Perrin and Faile. For them, while I am annoyed by it, it does just feel like two immature kids who don't really know how to act around someone they're attracted to. And I think for me, that sense of seeing them as immature kids, it carries over into their relationship when they get together. And that might actually be why some of their more obvious problems don't really bother me as much as they do other people. I don't think their relationship is super healthy. I went into this in a bit more detail in my Faile video, which I will link in the description below. You can watch it if you feel like it. but I know that it is the first serious relationship for both of them, and they're just trying to figure it out. And while I don't necessarily like the way Jordan wrote them falling in love, I do like the way he wrote them being in love. Like, I 100% believe that they love each other deeply. I cry when Perrin saves Faile from the hedgehog trap. I cry in that letter that he writes to her when he thinks he's going to die. I cry at their wedding. Seriously, I guess I'm just a soft touch. So while I see so many issues in their relationship as it stands in the books, I also have a sort of confidence that they will grow and mature, and their love for each other will help them find a way to have a healthy, or at least a healthier, relationship in the future. Speaking of that hate to love trope, we also have Siuan and Gareth Bryn. And yeah, I just really don't like this relationship at all. As I said, I don't like this trope, and this one, I feel like it's being played for laughs, and I don't find it funny. Siuan is just really annoyed at having to do chores for Bryn and complaining about him, and you know how she hates having to be around him all the time, and whoops, turns out she's in love, and so is he, and it just annoys me so much. And frustratingly, not only does the way the romance play out annoy me, but for me it also sort of lessens Siuan as a character somewhat. It's like she's no longer Amyrlin, and Egwene has proven that she can stand on her own 2 feet, so Siuan gets a man? Like, that'll give her something else in her life to, you know, fill the hole left from being the most powerful woman in the world. No. Okay, and moving from this on to another romance that I actually feel lessens the characters involved, Thom and Moiraine. Now, I know that this one is foreshadowed long before it happens, but I can tell you that the first time that I read Towers of Midnight and they got together, I was like, what the f***? Where did that come from? And even on rereads, when I can see the foreshadowing, I do not see them falling in love. I do not even really see them interacting beyond one sort of brief conversation. I can see them both being intrigued by the other one, and yeah, that's it. I really do not like this romance at all. In fact, it might be my least favorite in the books because, as I said, it honestly feels like it diminishes Moiraine as a character to me. Like RJ felt that in order for her story to be complete, she had to have a romance. This woman who had dedicated her life to finding the Dragon Reborn, to training and protecting him, who had willingly thrown herself into the lion's den to save him and undergone torture in there. What she needed to complete her arc was a romance? And a romance with a man she barely knew, and a man who, okay, granted the way channeling and aging work, he's probably about the same age as her, but he's an old man and she is not an old woman, and he's gonna die long before she will. And yeah, that's what makes her story complete, because without romance, she would be lacking. And of course, I am being sarcastic. She didn't need a romance. She didn't need a damn thing. And the way it's written, with her as a damsel almost swooning over her rescuer, it really annoys me. I've read some discussion that Moiraine and Siuan should have ended up together, and while I think that would have been preferable, I mean, at least they knew each other and had history, I really don't think either of their stories needed a romance at all. But Jordan seemed to feel that all of his characters needed to be paired up by the end, and sometimes I think this happened to the detriment of the character. Another romance that I really do not like is the romance between Morgase and Tallanvor. And this one bothers me for 2 reasons. Number 1, Morgase's storyline is one of the darkest in the books. This woman was mind-controlled and sexually violated over a significant period of time by one of the Forsaken. And not only that, he also mind-controlled her into completely ruining her reputation. He literally had her torture one of her closest allies. He burned all of her bridges, so even if she hadn't abdicated the throne, she can never go back to her old life because he destroyed it. And then she's kidnapped, and I gotta be careful because of YouTube's rules, but she is tortured and violated again. And then she escapes that, but is once again kidnapped and put through physical torment. And after all of this, and in the midst of all of this, she's being pressured by all the people around her to just give in to Tallanvor and marry him. This is not a woman who should be jumping into a romance. I mean, if anything, what she needs is therapy, or at the very least time to heal from all the shit she's been through. And I know that not everyone around her knows and understands all that she's been through. She doesn't even fully know and understand all that she's been through. But even the way the narrative is written, it tries to lead us, like us the readers, to the conclusion that, yeah, she should just give in and marry him. And I keep using that phrase, give in, because, okay, well, the second reason I don't enjoy this romance is because Tallanvor is your quintessential nice guy. And if I had hands, you'd see me doing air quotes there. He's the guy who's all, I've done everything for you. I've served you. I've helped you escape. That means you should be in love with me. And everyone around Morgase is all, yeah, Tallanvor's a super nice guy. You should be in love with him. And the way the story is written is like, look at Morgase and how silly she is for not being in love with this super nice guy. And like, no, she doesn't owe him shit. He chose to do all of those things. She doesn't have to be in love with him because he's super nice to her and protective of her. My God, he's a soldier. She is, or was, his queen. That's his literal job. That's like a doctor being mad at a patient that didn't fall in love with him. Like, no, dude, I'm not going to fall in love with you because you did your job. Okay, sorry. I feel a bit strongly about that one, but okay. I'm not going to go through every single romance in the books. The next one I would probably put in here would be the Mat and Tuon romance, but I don't fully know how I feel about that one. I'm conflicted because there's parts of it I like, but I am just really conflicted about Tuon as a character, and that might be in a forthcoming video, but we'll leave that one. But I wanted to touch on the romances that I felt the strongest about before getting to the central romance, or romances. I'm not sure what grammar to use here. The most central romantic relationships in these books, and that is Rand and his ladies. So, okay, I'm going to break down each one of these relationships one by one, starting with, of course, Rand and Elaine. She's his first real relationship, and it seems that he's her first as well. These two totally remind me of that high school couple that are constantly just, making out and giggling in corners because that's what they're doing. To me, their relationship is cute, and it's fine. It's shallow to me. Her obsession with him, like even beyond his whole ta'veren-ness, makes sense to me. She's a sheltered royal, and it doesn't seem likely to me that she would have been exposed to very many non-noble, non-royal men. He's likely the first one she's met, and so, yeah, when they do meet and they have this whirlwind romance, it makes sense. And of course, ta'veren being what it is, she's exactly the person he needs at that time. She can teach him how royals behave and negotiate, and about the game of houses and how to lead. All the stuff she's been learning since she was a kid. He's a young, naive farm boy, and she gives him the tools that help him to become a leader. But their time together is really brief. And of course, the way it ends has to have some confusion in it in order for us to be okay with the next relationship. That's Aviendha. Now, Aviendha is an awesome character. I love her, but I absolutely hate the way this romance plays out. I mentioned before, I do not like the whole I hate you, oh no, it turns out I love you thing. Well, this is that, and it's turned up to 11 because she knows that they will end up together thanks to her time through the rings in Rhuidean, and she doesn't want that. So she fights it as hard as she can. She treats him terribly, and she hates being around him, and she tries to get out of the job the wise ones have given her of like educating him on the ways of the Aiel, but can't because they keep forcing her to do it, which that's something else that annoys the hell out of me, by the way. They're practically pimping her out to him. And I know they aren't forcing her or even asking her to sleep with him, but they're also quite clear that they are keeping her with him because they think he's gonna like having a pretty woman around. And that just makes things feel icky to me. I wish there had just been a line or two saying that the wise ones knew through dreams or whatever, that Aviendha had to be the one that Rand got together with, and that's why they did this. Because honestly, it just feels like it's just this side of forcing her into his bed, and that feels gross. Now, I've had conversations about this with people, and often the response to that is, no, the wise ones knew that she was attracted to him, and that's why they did it. And yeah, I don't care. If I'm attracted to someone and I don't want to be, like if I'm attracted to a married woman or a mother of a child that I teach or something, and my friends know that I'm attracted to them, but I make it very clear to them that I do not want to be attracted to that person and I don't want to be around them. My friends would be assholes for forcing me to do it against my will, or taking it down to something simpler. What they're doing is akin to telling your friends you're on a diet and then they lock you in a room full of cake and cookies. Like, that's what the wise ones are doing to Aviendha. But okay, Aviendha gets locked in a room with Rand, and eventually she gives in and eats his cookies, so to speak. And yeah, that's pretty much it. She won't pursue the romance further until she makes things right with Elaine, but she does get to spend a bit more time with Rand than Elaine did, and once again, she's exactly the person that Rand needs to be with at this time in his life. He needs someone to help him with the Aiel, and he needs the Aiel to see that he is a part of them. But of course, she leaves and goes off to be with Elaine and Nynaeve and doesn't see Rand again until the very end of, or near the very end of the series. And then we have Min. And Min, much like Aviendha, knows that she is destined to fall in love with Rand. In fact, she was already pretty much in his pocket at the end of the Great Hunt. And at that point, she'd had, a 10-minute conversation with him in Barillon? But because of her abilities, she knows that this is a pattern thing and that she can't fight it. So it makes sense. She's had enough experience with her viewings to know that fighting it would be futile. So she just lets herself fall in love. So when she does show up in his life and start flirting with him, I get it. It follows. It makes sense with what we know of her. But what I do not enjoy is how that flirting plays out. I mean, just imagining her sitting in his lap and I don't know, what exactly is she doing? Is she just rubbing up on him or grinding on him or pressing her body into his? I'm not sure. It just says that she's trying to get him to stammer and blush, and imagining her doing anything in that vein makes me cringe, especially because it's not just a one-time thing. If it was, I could almost forgive it. Like if he told her, oh, I think of you like a sister, and she got annoyed and plopped down on his lap, that'd be one thing. But to make it a routine thing that she does all the time, it's beneath her. Min is a smart, independent, confident woman who doesn't need to wiggle around on a man's lap. I hate that. But okay, Min is with Rand from here on out, and I'm not going to get into the incident that precedes their romantic relationship. Again, YouTube's rules and whatnot. I may deal with that in a future video, not sure. But, well, of all the women that Rand has a relationship with, this is the one that I am the most invested in. And part of that is just for a very mundane reason. She's the one who gets to spend the most time with him. We actually see their relationship grow and change and evolve. We get to see them enjoy being around each other. We see how she comforts him, and I don't mean just when she quote-unquote comforts him. We see the ease in their relationship. It feels way more real than the others. And she's also with him when he starts to become harder and darker. She's with him when he is suffering. She's with him at his lowest point. And she is a stabilizing center for him. Notably, she doesn't really have something specific to offer him like Elaine with her leadership lessons or Aviendha with her Aiel lessons. Yes, Min does have her viewings, but somehow that doesn't feel as targeted or as specific as the others. The feeling I get, actually, is that she doesn't have something to teach Rand. She doesn't have something that Rand needs. She is the person that Rand needs. Now, what prompted me making this video was, once again, a Daniel Greene video. He made a video responding to comments, and one of the comments in that video was mine. And the comment was about how frustrated I am with how in books, particularly fantasy books, it is so common for people to end up with the very first person they were ever in a relationship with. And in responding to my comment, he asked viewers which book romances He would like to see explore the, crazy idea that sometimes couples break up. And yeah, for me, it is these 3 romances of Rand's that I would like to see explore that idea. I just do not like this foursome romance at all. Because, okay, yeah, I haven't made it clear. Most of you watching will have read the books, but Rand is in a relationship with 3 women at the same time. He continues to be with all of them, and they all eventually just come to be okay with it because they just love Rand so damn much that even though for 2 of them, the idea of sharing a man was something that they never would have wanted, they're willing to do it because, Rand's just that good, I guess. It just falls so hard into that cliche that I was talking about in that comment. It just does it 3 times. Rand and Elaine fall in love. We see them fall in love. So we don't want to see them break up because that would be sad. So they are still in love and together, but then Rand and Aviendha fall in love. And we see them fall in love, so we can't see them break up because that would be sad. So they are still in love when he and Min fall in love. I think the idea of this was to do something new and fresh by showing a new kind of romance with multiple partners, but it doesn't feel new and fresh to me. In fact, it feels more cliche because each of his romances is the one. It's just repeats of that same cliche stacked on top of each other. A more new and fresh idea, again to me, would have been to have him have a relationship with one woman, break up with her, deal with the breakup, grow from it, and of course the same is happening to her, and then have a mature relationship with another woman. And then that relationship ends and both partners learn and grow from that experience, and then another relationship. You know, how life actually works, but is rarely shown in fantasy. And I know right now that there are people screaming at their screens right now going, what about the veins of gold? Yeah, you know how this could have even been more fresh and new? To show that people who break up don't always have to hate each other. In fact, they can still love each other, even deeply. To show that it isn't only romantic love that can be a saving force, because that is also very much a trope in fantasy, that love between friends doesn't save, or love between family. No, it has to be romantic. That would have been new and fresh. Of course, another reason that I don't enjoy this relationship is because of the whole male fantasy, male gaziness of it. And I know that I've heard for the show that Rafe has said he's more interested in exploring it as a polyamorous relationship. And fine. I mean, look, I love these books even with this foursome relationship that I don't enjoy, but I honestly am not that excited about the idea of making the relationship more polyamorous either. And this is not because I have an issue with polyamory. I've read a few series with polyamorous relationships that I really enjoy. Try Broken Earth by M.K. Jemisin, or the Xenogenesis series by Octavia Butler. That one is fascinating. But the reason I'm not excited about it is that I have a feeling that what it's going to be is that Rand has 3 girlfriends, and 2 of his girlfriends also have sex with each other. Like, Elaine and Aviendha would be a couple within the foursome. And as much as I would love to have some positive lesbian representation, to me, this makes the foursome even more male-gazy, not less. Like, okay, story time. I am a lesbian. I do not date or have sex with men, but I have been approached by men at least 3 times who have asked me to have sex with their wives or girlfriends. These men did not want to be a part of it. They just really liked the idea of their girlfriend or wife having sex with a woman. It was hot to them. And I'm not saying this would be the case for Rand as a character. He doesn't seem skeezy like that. I'm saying that adding a sexual relationship between 2 of the women just makes it even more of a male fantasy. Plus, if this is how they are planning to add positive lesbian representation, then please don't let this be the only one, because it's going to seem like a lesser relationship than the one with Rand. Rand is literally the most important person in the world. And so any relationship that involves him, he's going to feel like the primary, the center. And I mean, just what I was talking about before, part of that whole, please, random lesbian, have sex with my wife thing that happens is because many people view lesbian relationships and lesbian sex as less to straight ones, or even gay male relationships for that matter. And I know that sexuality is fluid and no one should be put in a box, but lesbianism in particular is often viewed as transient, as a phase, and it's not as serious as relationships with men or between men. So if this is what the relationship, like the lesbian representation, is going to be, it's going to take a lot of narrative work to make it seem like anything other than a lesser relationship compared to that with Rand. But okay, getting off that and back to a narrative reason why I think this foursome would be better told as a series of sequential relationships instead of one just long clump, is that all of the people involved grow and change. The Rand that Elaine falls in love with is not the same person he is at the end of the series. And between the relationship, when it starts and sort of ends, and the end of the books, she barely saw Rand. She saw him to bond him and bone him. And that's pretty much it. She doesn't know him anymore. And conversely, he doesn't know her. She's no longer the naive, sheltered princess. She's now a well-traveled, experienced queen. They've both grown and changed so much. They are both in love with who they imagine and remember the other person to be, not who they are at the moment. And the same can be said for Aviendha and Rand, just to a slightly lesser extent, because they were apart for slightly less time than Elaine and Rand were. Min was the only one who was with him when he went into like the depths of his darkness. And she was with him when he came out of it. And she was with him when he integrated himself with Lews Therin completely. The others were not a part of that. They don't know him anymore. It doesn't make sense that they're still together. They can still care about him. They can still love him. But the person that he is not the person that they were in a relationship. It's not the person that they fell in love with. So, okay. Yeah, as I said at the beginning of this video, I love the Wheel of Time. Again, by the very fact that I've made this channel, this should be obvious. So I hope this video will just be taken for what it is. A loving criticism of one aspect of this immense series that I love. So, I'm kind of scared to read the comments. I know people feel protective of Wheel of Time, and so do I, but I will still read them nonetheless. So please, let me know what you think. And as always, like, subscribe, and stick around for the art credits. Bye!